Hey you guys, it's Peter and welcome to my channel, Peter Likes Books. And today I wanted to do something a little bit different on this channel. And I thought it would be interesting if I just stood in front of my bookshelf and I picked 5 books that I will probably never reread again. That I'm almost 100% sure that I would never read again, if that makes sense. I'm also going to do another video where I pick 5 books that I definitely would reread again. So it's an interesting topic specifically for me because I am not a reader that rereads a lot of books. It really takes a special book for me to reread. But what was interesting was standing in front of the bookshelf, I was just kind of standing there and I was like looking, and when I was going through it, it was like every book, I was like, yes, no, maybe, yes, no, maybe. And, but there weren't very many of them that I definitely would reread, and I definitely wouldn't reread, if that makes sense. So I kind of think it's an interesting conversation, you know? And I see booktubers all the time talk about, oh, I reread this book, or I've reread this book for, 5 times now, I love it so much. And it's always interesting to me what other people reread, because for me, it would have to have a book. I guess it's going to be interesting to see what books I do pick for absolute rereads, because, a lot of times I think, well, it would have to be a book that has like a really profound message in it, but I don't know that I think that that's necessarily true either. You might just really enjoy reading a book and it was really fun, like Harry Potter or whatever. Not that Harry Potter doesn't have messages in it and, whatever, but that, like for me, it's like, I'm going to pick a book that, like Catcher in the Rye, like that I've reread, I don't know, so many times in my life, and every time I read it, and like, it's so poignant, although it's like so trite to even say that about Catcher in the Rye, you know what I mean? So anyway, I picked 5 books. I think they will actually kind of surprise you guys, and I tried to pick 5 books that were well known. I mean, it would be easy for me to go over there and pick a book that nobody's heard of, and that I didn't like, so it's an absolute no to reread. But these are 5 books, that I think the majority of BookTube will know, and I can't imagine that anybody on BookTube wouldn't know these books. Maybe one of them, but other than that, I think most of them are books that most people would know, and I think that if you watch my channel regularly, some of them may surprise you. Okay, so the first book that I picked was Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. And it was interesting when I picked up this book, because I was like, would you reread that? And I was like, no. Every year for Christmas, I watch A Christmas Carol in 4 different versions. I watch the George C. Scott version of it. I watch the old 1930 version of it. I watch the Patrick Stewart version of it. I watch the Mickey Mouse version of it. I watch, all of them. There was another cartoon one. Oh, the Jim Carrey one that was done with Pixar. I watched that one. I love the story of A Christmas Carol, and I'll continue to watch it as a movie, but I feel like I've read it so many times that I almost prefer, at this point, the movie version of it, which isn't the only book you're gonna hear that about when I'm talking about these today. Because I kind of talked about one of these last night in my vlog. If you don't know, I vlog every day. I have a vlog channel that's listed below. I also have a story time channel called Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life. And I also have a main channel where I do YouTube drama, but most people from BookTube don't find that channel interesting. I don't know, I just I remember reading this, and the movies so closely follow it that I was like, I would rather read this year for Christmas, and I celebrate Christmas, whatever holiday you celebrate, I respect. I read all of these different books that were Christmas books and holiday books. And I think I would rather read new books that I haven't read before that are about the holidays instead of A Christmas Carol. Again, I love it. I love the message of it. I just don't know that I ever need to reread it again. So I'll keep it on my bookshelf, but I won't probably ever reread it. Okay, the next book I think is going to surprise a lot of people. And I actually kind of hinted at this the last time that I did a read along with it. I think it was in November maybe. And I talked about this extensively on my vlog last night. So if you want to hear more about it, and I'm also going to, on my Peterisms channel, I'm going to do a whole video just dedicated to this book and what it means to me. But that book is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. I have read this book. Well, here's the thing. I read it when I first went and saw the play with my mom. I really tried to remember how it all went. When I went and saw the play with my mom and her friend and daughter, I was probably in 4th grade at the time. My mom and I read the book together. And then after that, and because she knew that I would have a lot of questions about things. And then I read it in 6th grade for school. And then I think I may have read it in 9th or 10th grade again, but I'm not sure. I did not read it again. And this is so strange, being that this is like my favorite book of life. I did not read it again until November when I actually listened to it on audio, and because I wanted to hear Sissy Spacek narrate it. I would not recommend the Sissy Spacek narration of it. If you know Scout's voice from the movie, it will ruin it for you because she changes a lot, the dialect of words and things like that. It's just not spoken the same way. And what I really realized reading the book was that I love the movie To Kill a Mockingbird more than I love the book. And the movie is what I'm so familiar with. The story and the characters that Harper Lee developed, I love. And I said last night in my vlog, I said, I don't know what I think is more phenomenal, that Harper Lee wrote the book To Kill a Mockingbird or that she created the character Jean Louise, Scout. Because to me, Scout is what makes me, I mean, and Atticus and Calpurnia and Jim and Dylan, all of them, but if Scout were not in this book, it wouldn't be the same thing for me. So I don't know, but like, I feel like I know this book inside and out. I feel like I know everything that happens in it. I don't ever need to read this book again. I would, though, watch the movie many, many times again. I love the movie. I love to just have it on in the background while I'm doing stuff. It's very reminiscent of home for me. It reminds me of growing up. I love this book. So I would or this movie. I would definitely watch the movie again, but I don't know that I ever need to read it again. I just don't. And it didn't have the same effect on me this time reading it than it had in the past, and it kind of almost made me sad. Now, what's funny about this is, and this may be on my next video that I do, I would reread Ghost at a Watchman, though, the sequel to this, or the other book by Harper Lee that they don't say it's a sequel, but it felt like that to me. I would maybe reread Ghost at a Watchman, so you'll have to wait and see. Okay, the next book that I pulled down is Augustin Burroughs' Running with Scissors. I love Augustin Burroughs. I love his writing style. I love his work. I love his honesty, his raw authenticity. I did not love this book. I felt moved by this book. And maybe it's just because of my growing up was in some ways similar to his growing up. But this book was uncomfortable for me to read. And very uncomfortable for me to read. And I watched the movie, and I felt very similar about the movie. I didn't love the movie any more than I loved the book. I fell in love with the writing style, if that makes sense. And I've read everything by him except for his last book, which I actually have over there. But I love Augustin Burroughs as a writer, and I love his writing style. I just didn't love this book. I don't know, it was so uncomfortable for me to read. That I probably would never read it again. Now, Dry, which is interesting, and this is another one. Dry, his book about recovery, of going into treatment, is probably one of my favorite books of life and one of my favorite addiction memoirs ever. It's just so well done and it's so authentic. And having worked in treatment and gone through treatment, I mean, it is treatment. There's no two ways about it. Unlike, what's the guy's name who wrote A Million Little Pieces? I can't think of his name. But anyway, his book, he came out later and said that he fictionalized a lot of the stuff. Dry is definitely an authentic account. You can tell if you've gone through it, you can go through. James Fry was his name. If you've gone through treatment or you've worked in treatment, you know that that's an authentic account. And I actually even know the treatment program that he went to because when I read it, I was like, oh, this is that program. I don't think he says it in there, actually. Okay, so I would never reread this book again. I mean, that's an absolute for me. The next book is funny, and I was like, when I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, I would never read that again. And that is The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. I am going through this weird thing with John Green right now. I am such a huge John Green fan. I've read everything by him. I'm a little different than most people. Paper Towns is my favorite book of his. And then probably this, and then Looking for Alaska, and then An Abundance of Catherines, and then Turtles All the Way Down. I did not enjoy Turtles All the Way Down at all. And I just thought it was, I thought it was okay. I know a lot of people loved it, and I think that the wonderful thing about BookTube is we can like what we like, right? But after having seen this movie and reading this book, and I can remember reading this book, I read it because Tyler Oakley talked about it on one of his videos. And I went out immediately and got it. And I sat on the front porch and I read it, and I bawled my eyes out. I mean, I read it literally in a day and a half. And it was just, I was so moved by this book. But now having seen the movie and read the book, it's almost Fault in Our Stars saturation. And to some degree, I hate to say this, but I feel like it's John Green saturation. when you look at his books, okay, and you look at Hazel Grace and Augustus Waters, okay, and here are the two characters, right? Every book that he has written has a similar character. It's like there's a formula to John Green's writing. I'm just not that impressed anymore. And I think when I sat down and I really looked at the fact that John Green writes these very typical boy-girl characters that play off of each other, and then the rest, the story is different, then I was like, you're gonna have to really come up with something new for me to continue to fall in love with that. So I don't wanna read Fault in Our Stars again. I loved it the first time I read it. The movie I thought was fantastic. I thought it was really well done. But I don't, you know, and if the movie came on TV right now, I would watch it. So, but as far as reading it again, no, I'm not gonna do that. Okay, the last book, it's interesting how I picked this book. So I saw it up there on the bookshelf, and I'm not even going to get into the drama or anything that's going on circulating this book right now, because there's two dramas. There's number one, the drama of the story, okay? And there's number two, the drama of the author. And if you guys want to know more about it, Google it, because it's all over the place right now. And the last book that I probably would never read again, the last book I will never read again, is 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher. And I have to tell you, if you go back and you watch some of my videos, when I first read this book, I really liked it. And I don't know, I keep on pulling on my t-shirt. I don't know what happened. Like, I must not have, it's interesting that a lot of the comments about this book didn't come out until after the Netflix show came out, which I thought was problematic and needed warning triggers out the ass, which it didn't have. I also thought it was a good adaptation of the book. But I don't know how I read it at the time. I remember, I bought this at the grocery store. I remember, and I came home and I started reading it, and I thought, this is kind of a genius idea for a book, right? But I don't know how I read it and didn't think of it as problematic at the time. And now, after having watched so many videos about it, like, I mean, I really kind of enjoyed the book. And now, like, I mean, even with dark subject matter, if it's what it's about, and, you know, the whole, her, you know, whole attitude towards why she did what she did was so, I think it's a bad message to send out there to the world. I don't know how, I just kind of like, oh yeah, okay, another book. You know, like, that's kind of how I thought about it at the time. And I read it years ago when it first came out. Now, after having watched so many videos, I'm like, Peter, how did you not see that? Like, I mean, really, how did you not see that at the time? And when I watched the TV show, which I did, which if you're gonna watch the TV show and you're under the age of 18 or even have any kind of trigger warnings with mental health issues, anything like that, you need to watch it with somebody else or have somebody to talk to, because it is that trigger warning. I mean, the show and the book are that trigger warning. And I guess I didn't really realize it until I looked back on it. And here's the question, okay? Did this book need to be written? I don't know that I can say yes to that anymore. I don't know that I can say yes to that because I don't like the fact that there was no real learning experience at the end of this book, if that makes sense. It just kind of was, here's the statement, you know? And I'm not sure what I think about that statement. I think it's pretty problematic, and it bothers me. And now there's all kinds of drama surrounding this and the author and all that kind of stuff, and you guys can go check it out. And you know, maybe that's a drama booktube video we'll do at some point, but right now I'm not going to talk about that. But this book I'll never read again, and I probably will give this book away or donate it to the library or something like that. I don't know, throw it in the trash. I have no necessity to ever read this book again. So anyway, those are the 5 books. I would be really interested to know, specifically in the comment sections, for those of you that read this book before it came out on Netflix and then like everybody started talking about it again, what were your feelings before and after, or were they the same? Like, if that makes sense. I'd be really interested to know, because like for me, like, it was like one of those things where you're like, oh yeah, I read this book, and then it's like, oh yeah, like now I totally see what you're talking about. Like, I didn't see it until other people pointed it out to me, and I don't know how I was that blind of a reader, if that makes sense. So if you guys had a similar to that or hated it from the beginning, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Okay, so anyway, these are the 5 books that I would never read again. I love you guys, and put in the comment section below what 5 books you would never read again. I'm really interested to know that, actually, because maybe there's some books that are on my TBR and I should just not even try it, right? All right, I love you guys, and I will see you later. Bye.